Here we go for the final say on semi-final weekend. Hello everyone, Matt Thompson's my name alongside Brisbane Lions triple premiership skipper Michael Voss. Michael, welcome once again to afl.com.au. An entertaining weekend of footy. The Saturday night match, a little bit of a blowout in the end, but a cracker on Friday night at the MCG.
They were both still quality games. Still shows that finals football is about winning a contest, and they're forward out. But the top four teams, they're all through, so it promises for preliminary final week to be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into it. Beginning with tonight, it was the Sydney Swans over Carlton by 24 points at ANZ Stadium. So much to talk about out of this match, 86-62 the final score line, as you can see there on your screen. Some terrific performances tonight. Jared McVeigh in particular led the way for the Swans, didn't he? 33 touches as well for Daniel Hanbury. Luke Parker with 3 terrific goals. Jared Waite with 3 goals for the Blues, and Andrew Walker the leading possession getter. Your first takeout from this match?
Well, the Swans run. I think that was something that was really missing last week, and this week they really stepped it up. McVeigh moved into the midfield. You highlighted his game and just how superb he was, finished with 42 possessions. But significantly, he was put in the midfield. He's been playing across half-back for most of the time, and he was injected in the midfield. Hanbury was very good. He's the sort of play that they were able to get for most of the match. Parker was outstanding in the forward line. He's winning his one-on-one battles, but also hitting the scoreboard was very impressive. But they just seemed to move the ball a lot more fluid than what they did last week, and one of the reasons for that was their midfield. Yeah,
absolutely. It was they were really able to turn it around, weren't they, compared to last week?
Well, Jared McVeigh talked about how they were embarrassed about their work rate last week, and so he put them to the sword a little bit and put the onus on, and he led the way. He said, well, look, I'm going to go out and say the words, but I'm going to back it up. And he was so impressive. He started to sit behind the ball late in the game. I'm sure he was probably pretty cooked by the end of the game, but his second quarter, to win 20 possessions in the second quarter, was just an amazing effort, and his ability to get out of stoppages or through stoppages, and we see a forward 50 stoppage there where he kicks a goal, but he was first to leave the area, and he really stepped it up. And Hanbury was the other one for mine. Started on the wing, had Armfield for most of the match, but his constant movement around the stoppages just forced Armfield to follow him around the whole ground.
And on McVeigh, a record for finals in that second quarter to have 20 touches. A terrific performance from him. There is another story, though, out of tonight's game for the Sydney Swans, and that is on the injury front. Let's look at Kurt Tippett, first of all, very early in the match, and this is a big blow for the Swans, particularly going into next week.
Yes, it is, and they've gone with their 3-tall structure, obviously with White and Mumford Pike, and then of course Tippett, so he's been kicking the goals, but Mitchell goes down also with an ankle injury, so this was really putting pressure on them to be able to sustain the work rate. The rotation's always going to become a factor late in the game. In some ways, I guess Jeddah now has played 3.5 quarters. They decided to start to rotate more players out of the forward 50. O'Keefe spent more time spending a little bit further or deeper in the forward line, so that added something different. And Jeddah, as the game started to go, he was getting better and better.
We did see Ryan O'Keefe right at the very end of the game there as well, perhaps a little bit of a cloud over him, certainly something to monitor during the week just with his leg. Kurt Tippett, it's a knee of course, and just confirming Tom Mitchell an ankle, so certainly a lot to monitor on the injury front as far as the Sydney Swans are concerned. The surface was another big talking point tonight, Michael, at ANZ Stadium. Is this acceptable in a final that we've got these kind of scenes going on?
Oh, it's disgraceful. And the reality is that we're playing on the biggest stage, and that surface has been put up. I mean, it reminded me of the old Etihad Stadium. No one could stand up at times, and they're inspecting the surface there at half-time and looking at the quality of it, but it has to be better than that. And this will be a really big subject throughout the week, I'm sure, but I really found that players are just running in straight lines and falling over. I mean, that is highly unusual.
All right, now from Carlton's perspective, a bit of a spotlight on Chris Yarra and his performance tonight.
Yeah, and probably particularly these couple of contests. We slipped over there, as you see, chasing Parker, and then the fundamentals, keep your feet, missing the tackles. I can see why Mick would be generally frustrated. He'd be hugely frustrated by this. I mean, it almost looked like a skating rink, I know, but I mean, he's just got to do better than that. This is finals football. The fundamentals, you have to keep your feet. And you can see him here, he's changing his boots, but
in the third quarter.
Too late for mine. After those incidents, game over. They were the two clinchers, and that really got the scoreboard ticking over and just got out of reach of Carlton.
Just very quickly, does he get a pass at all for the Surfers Cristiano or not?
Oh, he probably does, based on the fact that you're even looking at Chris Judd and he's slipping over. So there's a reasonable excuse, but in the end, you know, there's other defenders out there and they were able to keep their feet in crucial moments, and he didn't. All
right, from both games this weekend, the match review panel on Monday is going to be busy. Let's start with Ted Richards in the Saturday night match, because this one is certainly going to be looked at, this bump on Levi Caswell.
Well, anything that's going to go around the head will be looked at. Perhaps what's in his favour is a little bit is he gets him more front on. Whether that saves him or not, I don't know. They always say that the head is the major part when they adjudicate anything like this. So when you compare it to some of the others, he'll certainly get looked at closely.
As we transition back to Friday night, and Paul Chapman is in the spotlight.
Again, very similar, isn't it? Buddy Franklin the week before, or a couple of weeks before that particular incident. So
here's the comparison.
It's becoming... Well, that's a great shot, isn't it? Gives us a real indicator, and you can see on the left there, Chapman, the fact that he's left the ground. That's what they're going to look at the most.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that does bring us to Friday night at the MCG, and Port really was in this contest pretty much all the way through. In the end, a 16-point margin, 13-18, 96 to 12-8. 80, but the Cats were just too good in the end. They really did show their class. Paul Chapman played an important role, had 4 goals. Justin Westhoff with 3 for the Power. 26 touches from Travis Boak, 28 apiece from Stokes, and Kelly in a winning performance from the Cats in front of 52,000.
Yeah, and Port early were fantastic. I mean, they got everything they wanted. It was almost a carbon copy from last week when they played Collingwood. O'Shea was starting to get back and affect contest. They were really good around the ball. I thought Monfries was absolutely fantastic. His work rate was elite in that first half. Set up a lot of scoring opportunities. You see him working back inside 50 there, but that was a constant right throughout the first half. And Port just owned the ball, and they just worked the ball around the park. They took it from one side of the MCG to the other and really tested Geelong's run. And it was contests like this that they were just prepared to put their body on the line, will themselves at the football, get the ball going forward. And again, you start to see that real forward momentum that Port were able to get in these crucial contests. Monfries again, he just popped up absolutely everywhere, a bit of composure and the finish. But this was consistent right throughout the first half.
And so come half-time, what does Chris Scott say to his players? Because they were able to turn it around in the second half.
Well, they were getting so much ball inside 50. I mean, the inside 50 differential was major. So I would have thought a conversation would have gone along the lines about how they use the ball going inside 50, maybe a little bit more speed on the play. A real barometer for these guys is starting to pop up is Johnson. Not so much Johnson, I guess he's probably been a fairly regular high performer, but Motlop, Christensen, as soon as they start to get active, Geelong gets speed on the game. And through the second half, these are the guys that were able to really hurt Port, I thought. They came into the game, they got speed on the game, and you know, they really got the game on their terms. I thought Port hang tough for a while, 22 inside 50s to 5 in the third quarter. So they hung and hung and hung as long as they could, but you know, then eventually it just opened up.
And as we've seen with Port Adelaide all year long, they've always had the potential to come back into the game right at the very last minute with some amazing finishes. So no one at the MCG last night was prepared to write them off.
Not when Westhoff kicked that goal. It was quite amazing, and I think everyone would have been asking, could it happen again?
Yeah, well, I certainly was, where I was sitting at the MCG. Let's talk just quickly again about Paul Chapman. We've obviously looked at the incident. If he is out of the team, we saw last night just how valuable he was to this lineup. There's questions as well about whether or not he's going to go on next year. Your thoughts on Paul Chapman and his situation right now?
Well, certainly we don't know what's going to happen with the result, of course, of that incident, but I would probably put him in that basket at the moment, that X factor. When he's up and going, he just seems to be able to ignite the crowd or ignite his teammates. So he becomes important to them. What his future looks beyond that time, I'm not 100% sure.
And do the Cats have enough depth? It sounds like their VFL team is continuing to perform extremely well. They've got the likes of Josh Caddy, maybe Billy Schmetz, a couple of players that could potentially come in.
You do, but they're not Paul Chapman, and you're talking about big finals players, and we are talking about Hawthorn and Geelong. They can't be any bigger.
All right, another part of the story from last night, and indeed from this season, is the Port Adelaide Football Club. Haven't they turned things around, Voss? I mean, to me, it's one of the good news stories of the year.
They've been amazing, and we were looking at what their results have been over the last few years. That is a huge jump. I mean, people don't underestimate just how hard that is to get there. So for Ken Hinkley to come in as the coach and to put a new structure in place, get a new coaching team, they've recruited very, very well, and he rolled out a game plan which everyone bought into, and he had a very good year, and they've got a lot out of it.
What would be a good result for them next year?
I think they've got to consolidate. One thing we don't know is the draw. They've had a little bit of an easier draw this year than perhaps in previous times. So what their draw looks can sometimes have a bit of a weighting on that. But if they could consolidate this position, maybe go one or two higher, that would be a fantastic result. And then obviously in subsequent years, you'd expect to move into the top 4.
Ken Hinkley, Coach of the Year for mine. What about you?
Oh, he'd have to go close, wouldn't he? I think this guy has probably affected a lot of games from the coach's box, and that's difficult to do. He seems to be a strong tactician and really puts a lot of work into the game, but at the same time, rolls out a predictable game plan to his team, and they seem to execute it pretty well.
You are watching The Final Say on afl.com.au. So that's our wrap of the semi-finals. Let's now turn our attention to preliminary final weekend, and they are the crackers that we'd asked for, perhaps not necessarily in the order that we'd asked for. We've got Hawthorn and Geelong on Friday night. The Kennett curse is going to be one of the talking points of the week, Michael Voss.
We're not going to miss out, that is for sure. This is going to be built up all week. It's already been spoken about amongst the coaches, probably some of the first questions. I'm sure the players are sick of it, but it's going to come up all week. Yeah,
we know what it dates back to, and we know it's 11 straight. Extraordinary battles between these two teams over the course of that journey. Does it matter for anything for you?
Not really. Certainly there are some sides that just play well against certain teams. And Geelong, for whatever reason, no matter where they've been, no matter what team they've had, they've always just stacked up really well against Hawthorn. So that would be a concern for them. Maybe not at the start of the game, but as the game wears on, it's funny what scoreboard pressure does. Hawthorn really desperately want to play. So do Geelong, mind you, but it won't affect Geelong. They're backing in that their best is good enough, and so are the Hawks. It's
going to be interesting to see if Jeff Kennett, now of course he's the former president of the Hawthorn Football Club, whether or not he does keep a low profile this week or agrees to do as many interviews as possible. Let's have a listen to Chris Scott and his thoughts after the game on Friday night.
I reckon it's BS, to be honest. Who cares who the pressure's on?
Yeah, but you'd rather go in with 11 zip against the side.
No. 0-0 at the start of the game.
You don't take any confidence out of the fact you've got the wood on Hawthorn?
I don't care what I think. I hope our players do. I hope our players think we're going to win no matter what, and I hope the Hawks players are really concerned about it. But I'd be surprised. If they're going in with some mental demons, I'd be surprised.
So you don't believe in the Kennett curse?
Evidently, no. No, I hope it's real, though. But,
we were talking off air. Good coach speak from Chris Scott there.
Yeah, it's coach speak. When it's getting spoken about amongst the public, you don't need to cover it off as a coach. You go about your business. And the one thing that Chris has maintained whenever I've seen him present and speak, it's always been our best is good enough, and he'll stay to that line.
Very quick tip for this game. I know it's early in the week.
I think I've tipped the Hawks the last 11 times, so I'm going to go one more time. Percentages say so.
All right, the next game is the preliminary final on Saturday night, this will be, and it's the Fremantle Dockers against the Sydney Swans. How do you see this one playing out?
I just think that Sydney are looking a little bit too wounded for mine. Fremantle have had the rest. It's at the home venue. It clearly favours. But if there's any team that has character that can do this, it is absolutely Sydney. So it should be a classic contest. But I think Fremantle, with the rest, they're up and about. They're going to have some screaming fans actually going for them. So I would have thought they'll get through. Hawks, Fremantle grand final for mine.
All right, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out. And the injuries as well, I guess, are going to be, as I said, the story to watch over the course of the week for the Swans, and of course then making the trip west. Well, we are privileged to have Michael Voss with us here on afl.com.au. We can't let you go this evening without asking about your own future. There's been all sorts of rumours flying around the footy world. The latest, I think, has you linked to Collingwood. Who are you talking to? What do you want to do in 2014?
I have no update on anything at this point in time. So it's a little bit of sit and wait. Obviously, there's a few coaches out there that are still yet to be appointed, so that'll become a bit clearer. But for mine, it's just a sit and wait game. An
assistant's job is something that you would definitely consider, though?
Oh, absolutely. I love coaching, so if there's an opportunity and there's a club out there that'll have me, I'd love to join them. It's something that the last 5 years I've really enjoyed it, particularly the last 3 years. You feel like you continue to grow, so to give it away now, I think would be silly.
And if not, would you happily sit out maybe in the media for a year or two? Obviously, you're very comfortable here at the afl.com.au desk.
I'll just keep doing this for another year. I haven't really gone down that path. I think the first thing for mine is to see if there's any clubs out there, and then maybe we'll look at that option perhaps. And
there has been some talk about maybe some Brisbane Lions players wanting to leave the club since you've departed. How do you feel? What do you make of that talk?
Oh, it's a concern when you're talking about the drafting that we've gone through. I mean, a critical decision in 2010 was to try and lower our draft picks and get some good quality talent in. And at the moment, they've been talked about leaving. So if that does happen, I'm sure the club will be fighting tooth and nail to ensure that it doesn't. But if it does, it certainly doesn't look good.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Vossy. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here and really enjoying your analysis on the website.
Thanks.
Michael Voss with us here on this Saturday night. Well, thank you so much for watching. A few things to point you towards. Access all areas on Monday with Luke Darcy and Damien Barrett. Also worth keeping an eye out for The Verdict with Mark Fraser, the chairman of the match review panel. He will be with us to bring us all of the findings from that. And of course, right through the week, I'll be with you along with Jackie Reid on Footy Feed to keep you right up to date with the very latest AFL news as it happens throughout the finals. For now, from all of us here, good night. Thanks, mate.